Hello and welcome back to Coding with Kenny G. This is the beginner series, and in this video we are going to deal with errors. So as a beginner when programming, it's very easy to make a lot of little mistakes, and they can cause a lot of frustration, right? Like, why does things not work? Thankfully, our Unity editor and also Visual Studio is good at complaining about your mistakes, and the good thing is that they also generally show you how to fix it. So let's go through a few common examples so that we have a little bit of knowledge about how to deal with errors in scripting. I'm just going to open up the turret scene, the scene that we have been working on lately for the last few episodes. Okay, and then I'm going to open up the script called turret. And in this script, we are now going to produce a few mistakes on purpose. Okay, so first of all, let's delete a semicolon on the variable called public string turret name. So it's missing a semicolon. Well, first of all, Visual Studio is going to complain, saying it's a little red squiggly line, as it's called. And when we hover over it, it'll say CS1002, the error message here saying, hey, we expect a semicolon here. And when you do introduce a semicolon there, the squiggly line goes away. But let's delete it again and save the script and then go to Unity so that it'll try to compile, right? And then, we get a nasty so-called red error here. Red errors are bad. They mean that something is really wrong and the code won't compile. When I press play here, because on the hello world game object in the hierarchy, the turret script is present on a game object in the scene where the script is not compiling. When we press play, it says, whoa, red error, all compiler errors have to be fixed before you can enter play mode. Okay. And the red error here saying, hey, there's a semicolon missing somewhere. The good thing is that in the console you can double click the error message. And for the most common stuff, you'll actually get pointed directly to the line where the error is. In this case it's on line 7 in my case here, right? And when I add a semicolon here, it'll work, right? So I'll save the script and go back to Unity, let it compile, and then we'll see that the red errors go away when I play. Now it is operating correctly again, right? So that was one example of a typical typo, the missing semicolon. Then another common mistake, you have an integer variable, in our case is public int ammunition count. This expects whole numbers. What happens if I add a decimal to it? So it's 10.0. Visual Studio is then producing a squiggly line saying, hey, this variable is of type integer, but you're trying to assign it a decimal value. That is not allowed, because C# is very strict with how variables are defined. Personally, I like that a lot, but if you have ever programmed in certain other programming languages, maybe JavaScript and things like that, where you're using something called var to define variables. It's not as strict, but C# is strict, type strict is called. So those are some common examples. Other things, yeah, let's say that the function private void start. We have learned that we need to have an opening and a closing bracket, right? This denotes that within these opening and closing curly braces, the code will run. What happens if a curly brace is missing? I'm deleting one curly brace, and now the entire script just goes haywire. This can be a little bit confusing for beginners, because when I deleted the curly brace for the start function here, where is the squiggly line? Well, it's actually at the bottom of the class here. And then it looks like, hey, you should have where the squiggly line is. It says, hey, there's a curly brace that is expected here. And then you add it there. Well, Visual Studio helped us in this case, right? Because it actually, when I entered the curly brace at the bottom where the squiggly line is, Visual Studio helped us by actually inserting it where it was supposed to be, which was at the end of the start function here. But another way to look at your script with curly braces, they are connected in Visual Studio. See here, this squiggly line opening, squiggly line, wow, word confusion. The curly brace at the top of the class, and the opening curly brace, it has a line, dotted line, down to the bottom of the class, right? This is a helpful visual guide in Visual Studio, so we can follow the dotted line and see where it connects. Similarly, we can do that in the start function here, where it connects to a closing curly brace at the end, right? And if we delete it again, then it freaks out. It looks incorrect here when you see the dotted line. It doesn't land anywhere. So that is one way to visually check this stuff. That is a common error to do. So be on the lookout for that. Then there are more sneaky errors. So in our statement, let's say the hello world, I am a turret debug statement, right? Here. At the top, let's say I delete the closing quotation mark. Then it also freaks out. But not in the way that is very helpful, because this can be a little bit harder to see what's going on. If you're hovering over the red squiggly line that is produced in Visual Studio, right? It says syntax error, and it says it looks like there's a comma expected. But in this case, that error message is actually not correct. This is because the compiler is now freaking out, and it doesn't really know what to do. This is an example where we need to look at our script very, like we see here with the colors, right? Well, it looks like, because I have an orange color on the strings, Well, the closing parentheses and the closing quotation mark is also orange. So it's sort of like treating all of this as a string. This is one of those more difficult things to understand as a beginner. So you'll want to, how can I say this? You want to be getting used to being very, very clean when you're writing code. You can use the colors as long as you're not colorblind. There are things that you can set up. You should Google that if you're colorblind, how to set up colors in Visual Studio so that you get a visual aid. Because I can tell that this string is being treated correctly inside of the debug log statement right here, because, well, the closing parentheses is white. But yeah, so you see what I mean? Some of the things that we do can be a little bit more tricky to debug sometimes. This is one of the reasons why hard coding is often bad, because it's error prone. Okay, so let's produce some few more errors in this script. Down here in the next debug.log statement where it says my name is, where we are adding two strings together with a plus sign here, an operator. What happens if I delete it? So, yet again, it's actually not really describing well what you need to do when you're hovering over the red squiggly line. So this is why we really need to learn programming. We need to learn the syntax of things. We need to learn how to do things correctly, or else everything will be very, very difficult. Yeah, so sometimes you get very helpful error messages, and sometimes you actually have to visually debug your code. And sometimes, if we just cannot see what is wrong, try to write it from the beginning again, at least as a beginner. Okay, but you'll get used to this as you work with it, you know, after you make the mistakes a few times, because the good thing with programming is that you aren't really destroying things, right? When you're making a mistake, it is possible to fix it. So that is good. Was there anything else that I want to mention? I'd say that these are kind of like the starting kind of typical errors. So as long as the code compiles, right? Meaning that when we go to Unity and it doesn't complain, and it does run when we press play, things are generally good, unless we have some elusive errors. But we're gonna deal with things that can show up later on in the series. Thank you for watching this episode. Subscribe to my channel and like the video. And I'll see you in the next one.